Good evening, and welcome to Meet the Candidates. I'm your host, Paul Herring, and this evening my guest is Judge Herman Marable. But before I get to that, I want to encourage each and every one of you watching the show to definitely vote. I mean, I guess there's no doubt about that. We need you to vote. But we don't want you to go to the polls with an empty car. All right? So make sure you pick up your cousin, your nephew, your niece, your neighbor. Fill the car up. This election is critical, and we need everybody that can participate to participate. Now, with that said, I'm going to introduce you to my guest this evening, Judge Herman Marable. Judge Marable, why don't you tell the group about yourself?
Well, I have been proud to be your district judge here in the city of Flint for the last 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
I was born and raised in Flint, and I will have lived here by the time this airs for 50 years. I got a birthday coming up.
You're 50 years old.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. But I'm running for re-election because I'm very connected to our community
Mm-hmm.
and very involved in the community. And I believe that I'm a fair judge with integrity. And I want to continue my service to the public, the people of my hometown.
Well, that's understandable. Let's talk about your endorsements. Who is standing behind Judge Marable in your campaign?
Well, Paul, I've been very fortunate this time around that I have a lot of endorsements from a broad base of people. Everybody, the Greater Flint AFL-CIO, the United Auto Workers,
Mm-hmm.
the Iron Workers, the Building Trades Council, Communication Workers, Democratic Black Caucus, Genesee County Democratic Party, Democratic Women's Caucus, National Organization of Women. I'm very proud of that endorsement. Congressman Dale Kildee has endorsed me this time. AFSCME Council 25.
Okay.
Satora's Black History Corner, I'm sure you're
We know
familiar
Satora,
with her.
Yes.
Unity for Justice Caucus.
That's a hard endorsement to get.
Yes, it is, and she gave me her endorsement.
Well, listen, I understand that.
And even the Teamsters.
I understand that there are some folks that you're not taking endorsements from and money from. Can you explain why?
Oh, absolutely. Paul, I signed a pledge to reject any kind of campaign donations from organizations or political action committees that represent people that do business with the court. So this would be groups like the Genesee Landlords Association, PAC, process servers, collection agencies, people that make regular appearances in the courts.
Okay.
I am not taking money from them. Now, Paul, it's not illegal to accept campaign donations from them. I mean, it's perfectly legal.
Okay.
But to me, it's just not the right thing to do. Because the reality is this, Paul, and I think that the public probably is aware of this. When people give large campaign donations, people of that nature, they expect something in return.
Right.
And that's just not what I'm about. I'm a judge. I'm not a lobbyable official. We have to make decisions based on the law
Right.
and the evidence that's in front of us.
Now, you did mention the Landlords Association, and I know there's been some, I guess, bad blood between you. How are you handling that?
Well, bad blood, I don't know if I like that term,
Okay.
but, the Landlords Association has targeted me for years. They've targeted me, this election cycle. They've taken up billboards. This is the first time I've ever been on a billboard, but they have my picture on it with a slash running through it,
Okay.
saying not to vote for me or to vote for anybody except me. Paul, I've never taken any money from this organization. I don't meet with them. I don't think that that's what a judge is supposed to be doing. They're not open to everybody. They're just open to their little group. And, I'm not one to be influenced. They can't pull my chain. And I think that they are upset by that. And that's why they've targeted me.
Okay. Well, I understand they're doing stuff online as well. They're messing with you on MLive?
Well, Paul, judicial races tend to be, we hope, a little bit more lofty in their discourse, where the things don't get so ugly. Because we are dealing with the law, we're dealing with people's lives. But Paul, even last year, as recently as last year on MLive, if you take a look here,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you could see it, but, you know, they, a landlord, a person here identified themselves as a landlord, called me the N-word on MLive.
Okay.
And, you know, the thing of it is, they did it in such a way, if they'd actually written out the word Nigger, the software on MLive would have caught it and it would have been rejected. So they spelled it a little differently
Right.
so that it would be published. But, you know, the interesting thing about it is whoever commented immediately afterwards caught it and noticed it and said, you know, that the racial epithet is in the name and that they're criticizing the judge and the tenants that they probably service. So,
Nice.
You know.
Nice.
you know, they eventually deleted it. MLive eventually deleted the slur.
Let's talk briefly about your Student of the Month program.
Sure. Paul, since 2004, I've run a Student of the Month program for 10th graders, and it's now countywide. It's been countywide the last 3 years.
Okay.
And it's a student encouragement program. I award a savings bond each month to the 10th grader. That's the Judge Marable Student of the Month. They have to write an essay about their career goals. They get to come to the court to shadow me for the day. You know, I give them a trophy. There's a plaque in my courtroom where we engrave their names. We take a trip to Michigan State every year so they can meet with the admissions officials and students and professors to get a feel for what college life is like. We've been doing this, and we've serviced about 70 kids going back to 2004, and it's something that I'm very proud of. It's my way of saying to the community that we have got to value education, and we've got to recognize kids and encourage them to take their education seriously.
Well, I mean, you're full of controversy. You know, there's no doubt about it. There's some issues that you're not constantly in the paper, but you're in the paper enough. I mean, recently you were in the paper for a lawsuit about a tether. Why don't you quickly touch on that? Because I really want you to spend some time convincing me to vote for you.
Okay. Paul, one of my responsibilities as a judge, especially that handles criminal cases, is of course, we've got to make sure that the cases are handled fairly. But we also have a responsibility to protect the community. I had a case where a defendant was involved, charged with being involved in a drive-by shooting.
Okay.
This particular defendant had to go to the hospital. It had nothing to do with the shooting. And the sheriff's department did not want to have to pay a deputy to guard him while he was at the hospital.
Okay.
So they asked me if I would let him be allowed to be on tether while he was at the hospital. Well, I refused to do it
Okay.
because I think that was a public safety issue. I mean, if you're on tether, you could get up and walk out of the hospital. You know, there might be patients and people who work at the hospital whose safety would be placed in jeopardy. Visitors. And for that matter, the defendant's safety. I mean, if he's not guarded, there might be people that don't like him that can come to the hospital and harm him.
Right.
So the sheriff ignored my order,
Okay.
and I wrote him a letter. He did put a guard back on him, but the sheriff filed a motion in court to try to.
So they sued you.
Well, they didn't sue me. They tried to intervene in the criminal case that was going on.
Okay.
And to say that the sheriff is to decide who goes on tether or not. And the circuit judge ruled absolutely not. It is the judge, that is the presiding judge over the case, that makes that decision. And the case was thrown out. But, you know, Paul, I talk about this to say that, you know, this is my hometown. I've lived here basically my whole life. And I care about the people in this town. I care about the safety of the people in this town.
Right.
And, you know, I don't leave work and drive out to Flushing or somewhere else and you know, that's where I sleep and, you know, pay my property taxes.
Okay.
I don't own any property outside of the city of Flint.
Okay.
You know, other than my grandparents' house in Tennessee that I inherited. But, you know, this is my home, and I care about the people in Flint, and I've always stood for and with people in the city of Flint.
Well, I mean, tethering is a unique option to jail, I guess, and you're kind of known for doing some unique things with sentencing. Why don't you tell us a few of those things, and then I want to give you an opportunity to convince me to vote for you.
Well, Paul, I believe in restorative justice, and basically what that concept is having people that have committed an offense kind of make up for what they've done in some way to restore the person that they or persons that they've harmed. Now, in that spirit, one of the things that I do on as often as I can on nonviolent offenders who have committed what we might call nuisance crimes, things like illegal dumping, prostitution, metal theft in some instances, those kinds of nuisance crimes, noise violations. What I do is oftentimes I will sentence these offenders to do community service. And I, as much as I possibly can, send them back to the neighborhoods where they committed their offenses. Okay. Because I think it's important for them to have to meet and see the people that they impacted. I mean, if you're a John picking up a prostitute on Dort Highway or Fenton Road, you don't necessarily think about the people who live on those side streets that have to deal with this activity. If I send you back there to do a neighborhood cleanup, and you're dealing with the neighborhood block club or the neighborhood organization, and you meet the people you affected, I think that has an impact.
You make them wear signs that says, I picked up a prostitute on Dort Highway?
No, but I mean, obviously, if they're being assigned to do community service and they're being supervised, the neighborhood people will know who they are.
All right, well, listen, we've got less than 60 seconds left.
Okay.
So I want you to take a look at the camera and convince the people watching this show that you're the right man to stay in the seat.
Well, I'll look right at the camera and say this. Thank you for the opportunity to be on Meet the Candidates. I've been your judge for 12 years. I was a prosecutor for 9 years. I bring over 20 years experience to this position. And really, there is no substitute for experience. I'm committed to Flint. This is my hometown. I didn't move here just to get the position. You can look at the phone book and see where I've lived, and it's going to be right here in Flint. And you need to think about voting for somebody that has the experience and the commitment to this community that I have. And I think I'm unmatched in those areas. Other candidates that are running for office are going to tell you what they're going to do or what they might do if they get elected. I've got a dozen years on the bench where you could see what I've done both inside the courtroom and outside the courtroom. So I'd appreciate your support on the nonpartisan section of the ballot. We're on the back of page 1, and that's where you'll find the 68th District Court race. You get to vote for up to 2 people. I just need one of your votes.
All right, great. That was Judge Herman Marable running for his judgeship, I guess, to stay on the bench here in the city of Flint. You guys are watching Meet the Candidates. I'm Paul Herring, and hopefully there'll be more after this.
You gotta see this. See this frog? If I add boiling water.
No, wait.
See that? He jumps out.
Smart frog.
Now this guy, he's just as smart, but he won't jump out. Could jump out, but he won't.
Really?
He'll just stay in the beaker as the temperature slowly rises, never noticing, until he boils alive.
Why doesn't he just get out? mean, if he can get out, he should just get out. Right?
I still remember that night. Dad said, "Don't do anything stupid. Be safe." We didn't think about what could happen. Like the call when we found out about the accident. I didn't even know they left the party. Don't do anything stupid. He never imagined the lawsuits, how it would affect his life savings, our relationship, or his freedom. Dad thought he was being a cool dad that night. What I needed was a father.
Underage drinking. When you host, everyone loses.
Hello, thank you for joining us this evening for Meet the Candidate. My name is Kamora Cochran, and I'm here with Glenn Cotton, who is running to be the next 68th District Judge. How are you?
I am well. Thank you for inviting me this evening.
No problem. Thank you for joining us. We're going to jump right in and get into it just so you can get as much information and be at the polls informed and ready to make and cast your vote. So, Mr. Cotton, I'm going to ask you a little bit about your background so that our viewers in the city of Flint and the surrounding areas will be able to be more informed about their vote this fall. Can you tell me a little bit about your background as far as being an attorney in our area?
Sure. First and foremost, I'll indicate that I'm a Flint native. I grew up in Sunridge Apartments, which is right across the street from Northern High School. I learned how to play basketball at Anderson Elementary. I learned how to swim at Northern. I played baseball at Bassett Park. So having Flint in my blood and being from Flint is very much a part of me. I went to Carmen High School. I graduated from Carmen High School. And in 1985, I started the University of Michigan, and I graduated from the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor in 1989. Glenn Rice was also down there at the same time, so I'm proud to say that my Wolverines won a national championship in 1989 in basketball. And then from there, I went on to Vanderbilt to start law school. Unfortunately, I didn't finish Vanderbilt. I succumbed to a lot of personal problems, withdrew from school there, and then came back home, got well-grounded and well-footed and back into the Lord, and graduated from the University of Detroit Mercy Law School in 1994, and have been practicing laws for 15 years ever since.
Good. What has been your experiences as an attorney here in our area?
Well, I've had some wonderful experiences in this area. Generally speaking, I view myself, because of my background, because I went to the University of Detroit, I've always represented the small person, the person without a voice. So I look at myself as using my talents and skills as an advocate to best represent those who don't have a voice. So I've been able to effectuate large settlements for people, union people who've been discriminated against, representing criminal defendants in cases, and I get quite a bit of satisfaction representing those who the odds are against.
Okay, let us know about some of the accomplishments that you've had. I don't know if there's large cases that you want to let us know about, or any other accomplishments that you've had as an attorney or an advocate in our community.
Well, one of the things that I can say that I'm most proud of is that I did make case law, and that I had a ordinance created in, actually it was in Washtenaw County in the city of Ann Arbor. It was the Stop and ID ordinance. I had that declared unconstitutional, and it was pretty exciting to be in the books. So the case that you were on, that you represented, is actually case law, where they could not ask for identification for somebody with not having any probable cause. They were just stopping and asking people for identification, and if in fact they didn't produce identification, they were being arrested. And I just think that cuts against our Constitution and our right.
Right. That means they need you in Arizona and New York right about now, huh?
Well, I would just say this, that there's probably somebody just like me, at least hopefully down there, that is standing up for those who don't have a voice, because that is something that is very, very crucial. And I can honestly say that right now I'm currently working on a case with the suing the emergency manager. So again, the powers that be have stripped the city council of power to represent the citizens and have any actual authority in what they do. And I'm representing those folks to try to get their power back.
Okay, you mentioned the case that you're currently working on with the emergency manager. Is there any other cases that we would know about or should know about that you're you're also involved in right now?
Well, I would say that I represent a whole host of folks, and because I'm an advocate, you know, and generally speaking, until a case is decided, I usually don't try to put the limelight on such a case because it's one that we want to have all fairness to both sides. So I'll just say that there are a number of civil cases, a number of criminal cases that I'm on, and that my clients appreciate that I'm representing them.
Okay. Can you let us know about any challenges, personal or professional or both, that you've overcome?
Well, one of the biggest challenges that I had overcame was when I went to Vanderbilt. I was unfortunately made some bad personal decisions which caused me to be kicked out of the school there, and that led to me in conjunction with using alcohol and drugs. And I just think that was a period of immaturity on my part, and by me recognizing and facing my problems, I was able to not only seek the Lord, but seek help from my family, my father, and all of those who I thought were important to me to help keep me rooted and grounded, and got me back into law school and got me back into passion. I initially went to law school with the thought that I was going to go make a whole lot of money because I watched LA Law and all of those other things, and it was all about money. So I had the wrong motivation for initially going to law school. And then when I came back, and I really discovered why I was going to school, and that was to help somebody else, help somebody and be an advocate for them, then everything else turned itself around. And I can happily say that, you know, I've been practicing law for over 15 years.
That's good. This may be one of the most important questions, but let us know and our viewers know why now and why this position. Why are you running to be the 68th District Court Judge?
Well, first and foremost, I'm running now because I'm answering a call that many people in the community had. The community wanted somebody who would be fair, somebody who would follow the law, and somebody to ensure the public safety, and I'm here to answer that call. I believe now is the time because I'm the right man right now and the candidate that is most qualified, dedicated, and fair.
Okay, to follow off of that, is there anything that you would do differently than the current practices that are going on in that seat, or are there anything that you would make sure that you continue to do? Can you answer both?
Well, twofold. I would, number one, I would have a civil and a criminal docket that would best be able to utilize my talents, and it would be an effective and efficient allocation of those resources. By having a criminal and a civil docket and running them at the same time, there's not a lot of downtime. And one of the complaints that we have in the courts is the courts never start on time, never looks like anything is being done. And I want the people to know the courts will start on time, they'll end on time, will ensure the public safety, but most importantly, will treat people with dignity and respect.
Okay, I appreciate that. What do you bring to the table for our Flint residents?
Well, I bring a lot of things to the table. As a formal board president of the Genesee District Library that was in charge of a $7 million operation, I bring a host of administrative skills. So I believe that not only being able to handle the personnel and administrative decisions that the district court judge would have to face, I am also a team player. And by being a team player, I look to be a consensus builder. It's not always about me, it's always about what's right for the people. And if elected and given that privilege, government exists by, for, and of the people, and I believe the judicial branch is an extension of the government.
Okay. Can you tell us, you did touch on it a little bit, but can you tell us about any other additional plans that you have for the city of Flint to better our city?
Well, one of the things that we would look forward to and take a active part in is any type of nuisance crimes that are committed and that person may not have the money if in fact a fine is levied, and we would indicate that that person could do community service in the area in which they committed the nuisance offense. So it would be given back to the community. And one of the problems that exists is we don't have a probation department.
Right.
But because you don't have a probation department doesn't mean you don't have a leadership that can get out there and say, listen, meet me at 7 o'clock Saturday afternoon at Burston, and we're going to pick up all the trash. I will be there, and if you're not there, you're not on my list, then you violated your sentence. So I think, you know, many of the times we expect more from other people with respect to down the chain as far as being clerks and this and that for less money, but I think because of the salary that the judge makes, you know, you can expect more out of that judge also. So I would take that role in being an overseer in the sense of watching people, making sure they comply with their community service component of any sentence, and I think that would be crucial.
Would you consider yourself as a judge, if you were to be elected, a non-traditional judge as far as sentencing is concerned, giving the example that you just
Well,
provided?
I wouldn't say it's non-traditional. I would say that you're supposed to sentence an individual in based on factors that are not only appropriate for the individual but for society.
Right.
So there's a balancing approach, and you should approach each sentence with that thing. So you don't have a preconceived conception coming in, and I think that's part of the problem right now is people are being sentenced in a way that's not necessarily fair, and that's not based upon the facts and circumstances that the individual poses at the time. So I think it's not something new, it's not something radical, it's not something that is traditional. I'll just say it's something that's right.
Okay, I appreciate that. Can you give me an example of how you've worked with someone that did not share the same values or philosophies as you in the past?
Well, I can definitely indicate that when I was at the library, one of the concerns that we had was out-county residents being able to use the library at the same rate that an in-county resident could use. And I was diametrically opposed to that. And there was a vote that was cast with respect to the full board, and I happened to be on the minority with respect to my views, because the argument was that we're hurting these children that are living on the other side, and my countering to that was that's where their parents chose to live, so we don't necessarily have to feel guilty that those children aren't going to the library because that's where their parents chose to live that didn't have a library.
Okay, I know that every position that's a political elected position or a non-elected position, especially in our community, can come with a lot of criticism. Can you show me or tell me examples of times when you've had to face those criticisms and how you cope with that as well?
Well, criticism to me is natural. Criticism is something that people who, in a transparent government, in a transparent form of democracy, people are able to see what you have done and people are able to comment on that. So being subject to people's comments and criticism to me is only natural, and I get it every day.
Right.
So when it's in the courtroom after a case is heard, somebody will give me feedback, whether it be a family member, whether it be an opposing counsel, whether it be my client. There's always constant feedback, and I'll say this is that, you know, iron sharpens iron. So you only makes you stronger by you facing and learning from your mistakes.
Okay, closing out, I do want to give you the opportunity to speak directly to the viewers and let them know why they should vote for you. If they're not convinced yet, you have 30 seconds to give them your closing argument.
In 30 seconds,
In 30
I will say this, that I'm qualified, dedicated, and fair. I will start the court on time, we'll end the court on time, we'll ensure the public safety, but most importantly, we'll treat people with dignity and respect. I'm the right man, right time, which is right now. I hope to get your vote November 6th for Glenn Cotton for 68th District Court Judge. Thank you.
Thank you for viewing Meet the Candidate, and we will be back. Thank you.
Capture your future at Mott Community College.
3, 2, 1, racing. Hi, this is Jim Scroviero. We're here at Skid Marks Raceway. We're here racing our slot cars. It's made in Flint. We're proud of it.
All right, welcome to Meet the Candidates. I'm your host, Paul Herring. This evening I have with me Judge Crawford, who's running to keep his seat here on the 68th District Court, correct?
Yes.
And we're going to speak to him in a moment. But again, I want to put out a plea. This election on November 6th is very important. We want to encourage you to get out to the polls. Don't go in an empty car. Make sure you have the passenger seat full, the back seat full, and if you really have to, fill the trunk up. It's too important an issue, and allow some time. There's 6 pages on this ballot, and it's going to take a little time. We encourage those of you who don't want to take that time at the polls to go ahead and vote absentee. You can get your absentee ballots now. With that said, Judge Crawford, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a judge, 68th District Court, for the past 15 years.
Okay.
I was born in Georgia, but I've been in Flint since I was a little baby.
Okay.
Went to Pierce Elementary, Whittier Junior High, and I graduated from Flint Central. I went out of state to school and law school. I've been back home. I have a lot of experience working both for the city of Flint as an assistant city attorney. I was hired by Mayor Sharp and hired again by Mayor Woodrow Stanley. I worked in private practice for a number of years doing civil rights and employment law.
Okay.
I've sued some folks and I've defended some cases, and it just depends on the cause.
Okay. Well, what would you say Flint's biggest problem is, and then how can a judge help solve them?
Well, Flint's biggest problem right now is crime.
Okay.
All the other problems that we have, including our economic problems, will be hard to resolve unless we get a handle on the crime problem.
Okay.
The crime problem is multifaceted, and it ranges from the types of crimes that we have, which are tend to be more serious than what we see in the Out County and other parts of the state, and also has to do factoring the jail overcrowding situation and having a place to lodge people to keep them from committing further crimes, and that's a big part of it. Judge can have an impact in a number of ways. One of the ways that we can have an impact is to show up to court on time and to hear cases promptly, efficiently, and fairly. We have to remember, even though Flint has a large crime problem, not everybody is guilty. A lot of times people get pulled over for a traffic offense or have outstanding warrant, and we need to make sure that those folks are heard. So the ones that we can resolve their case quickly, we get them out of jail and move them on their way and free up the jail space for the more serious offenders. And along with that, we need to hear our criminal cases and our felonies swiftly, so those cases, if there's probable cause, those cases get bound over to circuit court so they can have their jury trial. If they're innocent, they're on their way. If they're guilty, move them out of the county system and move them up to the state prison where they belong.
Well, doesn't it just mean we need more judges, and we need more court staff, and we need more benches, and we need more court buildings? And I mean, if crime is up, we need more people like you and attorneys to solve it, right?
One might think that, but the actuality of the situation is due to the financial problems in the city of Flint. We're moving the other direction. It currently should be noted that the law has already passed that the 68th District Court will lose a judge with the next judge who is next seat that becomes vacant.
Okay.
If somebody, for example, were to retire right now, that seat would not be filled, similar to the way when Judge Anderson retired 7, 8 years ago, his seat was not filled. So with the next removal or retirement, or however a judge is not there, that seat becomes vacant, we would be reduced to 6 judges at the 68th District Court.
Okay.
Excuse me, to 4 judges at the 68th District Court.
4 judges. Why do we want to keep you on the bench? Why Judge Crawford?
Well, I believe I have, I know I have experience, and I also have an understanding of the city of Flint, being a resident here for 47 years. If you look at my list of endorsements, I'm endorsed by all types of judges and council persons, and I feel blessed by that.
Mm-hmm.
I have broad support from the churches and many ministers. When I go to churches, you know, we have a personal relationship over the years. And you need somebody that's in that situation where we can collaborate and work together. I have that experience. I get along pretty much with anybody. People know me. I'm fair. I'm approachable. And I can use my relationships with the leaders in our community and with the folks in our community who may not be considered leaders, but who have an impact upon our community. And I use that experience and those relationships to make a difference.
Now, does a judge have the ability to change laws and to really make a difference? What kind of, I guess, changes could you make in the judicial system that would be beneficial to the citizens of Flint?
We can't really change laws, but we rule on laws. And that's why judges can't sign, for example, petitions. You see people stand outside the courthouse and sign. We can't sign petitions because at some point we might have to rule on them. Same thing with city ordinances. And there's a lot of things that are going on now that are different than what they have been due because of the hard financial hardships going on in the city.
Mm-hmm.
And when those laws come up to review, if they're challenged, the judge is the one that, the district court might be the first one to have to make a ruling on any particular ordinance. Now, it could go all the way up to the Supreme Court, but judges do have an impact. Not
Doesn't
only
that sound like
whether-
it's wasting your time? I mean, why didn't they just go straight to the Supreme Court? I mean, if you're going to rule it and you know they're going to throw it out and go to the next court, you know what I mean?
Well, that's just the way the system works. It's a matter of where the impact of the law. And what it does is it gives somebody a chance to challenge the law at the first step. If in fact it's unconstitutional, then somebody shouldn't have to sit in prison or in jail waiting to challenge that law, so they can challenge it at the first step where it gets a judicial review.
I see. So what are you saying to people out there to get their votes? What are you telling the people that you're shaking hands with?
Well, you know, when I go to campaign at neighborhood block clubs and sometimes churches, I talk to people. Usually I don't campaign. I just talk to people. That's one thing. Nobody probably likes being challenged in a contested election, but if you are challenged, I look at the bright side. I get to meet people, I talk to people, and I find out what's going on and how I can help. And I tell people that to address the crime problem in the long run, jail is one thing, but the other side, to keep people from going to jail, we need jobs for our youth. A lot of people know my father, and he believed that the best thing you could do in the world was to give them a job. And in his position, he was able to give a lot of people jobs, and today I still have people come up to me and say, I knew Bill Crawford, he gave me my first job. And that's important. If we can get real jobs for our youth, then we can get them doing something other than being in a situation to commit crime. But in order to get real jobs for them, we have to have them educated and have them have skills where an employer will want to come in here and employ them. They have to be employable. And if we don't have that, it's going to be hard to get business to come into the city.
Well, I was at a crime prevention, I want to call it a workshop. We talked about how to clear the brush around the house to make it more visible from the street so neighbors could help with neighbors. But they also said, don't open the door to the kids who want to shovel your snow, and don't open the door to the kids that are coming around knocking to rake your leaves. And I mean, I think that's kind of a sad state of America. You know, if we got a young man that wants to rake some leaves for a couple bucks, we should really give him the couple of bucks. How do we balance the fear of being cased with the need or the ambition of a young man trying to make a little money?
That is a sad commentary that we have in our society, and it's unfortunate that I have to say that I have had cases where older folks in particular have been victimized by doing just that thing, opening their door to somebody following them home from the store and kicking in the door or following them inside and, you know, gunpoint, and it's very dangerous and it's very serious. And I can't sit up here and say, oh, just open your door to anybody. I think anybody has to use their own level that they feel comfortable with, and whether or not there's other people at home or in the house, and they have to make their own decisions. If it's a neighborhood child that you know and somebody that you know, their parents, if they worked for you before, then you might feel comfortable opening the door. If it's somebody that you don't know, chances are if you're there, you're elderly, you're alone, you're not going to open that door.
Right. Well, you did mention also that we're in some financial hard times here, and we understand that. Is there anything that you can do within the court system to save money, to maybe make it more affordable, to have that judge not go away?
Well, one thing, voluntarily or involuntarily, we have had to streamline staff. And what we're trying to do is cross-train our staff and make them more efficient, because every time our funding unit is the City of Flint. And every time the City of Flint takes a hit, the 6th District Court takes a hit. And we've gone from, I believe, a high of some 80-some employees down to 20-some employees at this point in time. It's a huge hit. And we have...
And your caseload is building, right? You're not getting less crimes.
The criminal caseload is high, but overall our caseload has dropped. But the problem is we have more complex criminal cases. We have multiple defendant cases and homicides and like arsons and some of these gang cases. And so the actual workload is still fairly intense, and we lost a judge. So it kind of doesn't quite even off. We've lost more staff, and with the opening of the lockup, we're really going to, quite frankly, be strained to keep up with those.
So now, if I were to talk to the college freshman Crawford in his dorm room, and ask him about what he thought being judge was, would it jive with what your experience is?
Yes, I had no idea of the administrative complexities and the politics that go along with being an elected official, but my job essentially is to do justice. And every day, no matter how busy I am, no matter what I have going on the outside as far as campaigning or family matters, when somebody is in front of me on their case, they get 100% of my full attention and my full ethics, moralities, and biblical trainings and religious beliefs and right and wrong to try to do the right thing and balance it with the law too. And usually the law, you can justify the law with all your moral beliefs and everything, because it really comes down to, right and wrong and what you believe is the right thing to do.
Man, I want to answer a bunch of questions, but I don't think that would be fair to you. If I were to give you a minute or so to just look in the camera and encourage the people watching the show to choose you as one of the judges in this election, what are you going to say to them?
What I would say is I'm a known commodity. I've been on the bench for 15 years. I have the experience, and I'm supported by a lot of people. And everybody says Crawford does a good job. He's fair, and that's what I like to be known for. But if I have 30 seconds left, I encourage everybody to remember how to vote for judge and for Supreme Court justice. You can't just vote the straight ticket. You have to turn the ballot over. You have to circle in the oval right next to the judge's name that you support. And I also encourage people to vote the absentee ballot if you qualify. The word is that it's going to take 15 to 20 minutes for somebody who's not familiar with that ballot to read through those proposals. So it's better if you know what the proposals are when you go in. Number one, you vote whichever way you're going to vote, through 6, through the 3 county proposals and the 2 City of Flint proposals. If you know that, it'll make it quicker, and we can make sure that everybody votes. That's very important.
All right. Well, listen, I appreciate you coming out to being a part of Meet the Candidates. You guys heard it here. It's going to be a big election. If you can vote absentee, we encourage you to do so. If not, we want you to fill up the car and get to the polls on November 6th, all right? Don't go by yourself. This is too important. Meet the Candidates. Be back after this.
Hello, my name is Ed Bullard from the Flint, Genesee Hate Crime Response Task Force. In Michigan, hate crimes are defined as a criminal offense committed against a person or property which is motivated in whole or in part by the offender's bias against a race, national origin, religion, sexual orientation, mental or physical disability, or ethnicity. Federal and some local laws include gender identity. Cross-burning, white hoods, swastikas, and slurs may be hate crime indicators. All human beings are born free with equal dignity and rights. All blood runs red. Let's stop hate crimes. For more information, contact the Michigan Alliance Against Hate Crimes.
Young men of color, come up from the gloom of national neglect you have already been paid for. Come out of the shadow of irrational prejudices. You owe no racial debt to history. The blood of our bodies and the prayers of our souls have bought for you a future without shame, bright beyond the telling of it.
Kwanzaa means access. It means access to your soul. It means access to your people.
Kwanzaa is like renewing your annual membership to community, to your family, to your culture, and most importantly, to yourself.
Kwanzaa is expressed throughout the world now by people of African heritage who want to have that cultural connectiveness.
These are principles of what we're supposed to be doing 365, you know what I mean, and how we treat each other and how we look at the world.
We did not petition or ask for permission to celebrate it. We did it by Kujichagulia, self-determination.
Three, two. Good evening, and welcome to Meet the Candidates. I'm your host, Paul Herring, and this evening I have with me a young lady that is running for the Supreme Court. But before we get to that, I need to encourage everyone that's watching this show to not only vote, but to take a car full of people to the polls. Just don't go by yourself, all right? If there's an empty seat in your car, you're doing it wrong. This election is too important, and we need to get as much participation as we can. So make sure you fill up the car, fill up the trunk, put them on the hood, whatever you need to do to get your friends, your neighbors, and your loved ones to the polls. Now, with that said, I have, and I'm going to get your name wrong, aren't I? Sheila Johnson. That's an easy one.
Very easy.
That's an easy one.
Easy for people to remember at the polls, too.
All right, Sheila, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, currently, Paul, I am a judge, and I am a judge that sits on a district court, the 46th District Court, that's located in Oakland County, Michigan, serves 5 communities there in Oakland County.
Okay.
Southfield, Lathrop, Franklin, Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, and Southfield Township. And right now, I am one of 3 nominated candidates by the Democratic Party for Justice of the Michigan Supreme Court that will be on the ballot this November 6th. It'll be on the nonpartisan part of the ballot. That's really important for people to remember. Even though we're nominated by a political party, the race itself is nonpartisan, and it'll be on that separate portion of the ballot. But I've been serving on the court now for about 10 years. I was the first African-American judge to serve in my district, which I was really proud of that achievement because it's a very diverse district. As you know, Southfield and the surrounding communities are a very nice part of Oakland County, a large segment of it. And to have them put their faith and confidence in me to elect me, an unseated incumbent judge, I was very proud of that. And I think I've very well served our community over the last 10 years. But prior to working as a judge in the district, I was an attorney for about 18 years prior to that. So I've got about 30 years of total legal experience. And representing regular, average people with their concerns, representing them in courts in the Tri-County, Macomb, Oakland, Wayne County for the most part, and federal court. Representing them on all type of issues that you can think of, from constitutional issues, civil rights matters, just various contract issues, representing children, protecting Michigan's families, really, children in juvenile court matters that needed representation, children who are at risk in the system as well as parents who were at risk of losing children, making sure that families were reunified and back on the right track. I spent a lot of my career also working with women pro bono, which means that, you know, when they didn't have the money, I worked for free, making sure that they had equal access to justice when they were also at risk in domestic violence situations, needed divorces, needed legal counsel. And so having represented people from various different aspects and various levels of court, it really gave me a good perspective on what justice means to average, common, regular folks like us, and you know, what their expectations are, and how fair and unfair sometimes the court system can be. And I've used that experience as a judge to make sure that when people appear before me, that they have an opportunity to be heard, that they're treated respectfully, that even when they don't have a lawyer, that they can feel confident that I was listening, that I tried to understand what either their claim or their defense was, whether it be civil or a criminal matter, and that the decision that they received was just and fair, even if they had to lose. And so I'm really bringing my view and my broad experience and my view of justice to the Michigan Supreme Court. I think it's very important to have justices there with some practical experience with everyday people, everyday issues, having practical trial court experience as well, and to bring that broad perspective to the table when we're making decisions about the evolution of the law and how it should be applied in people's lives.
All right. Well, excuse my ignorance, because I mean, I was always under the impression that the Supreme Court dealt more with lawyers versus judges and lawyers versus lawyers issue. You know, that you appeal something to the Supreme Court. What role does the Supreme Court play in my everyday life?
Well, it plays a large role in your life. You're absolutely right that matters are appealed from district court, can appeal up to circuit court. From circuit court, you have an automatic right to appeal to the Michigan Court of Appeals. But thereafter, there's no automatic right. The Supreme Court has the opportunity to decide whether they want to hear a case. And so you can imagine that has far-sweeping implications just right there, because they can choose what laws they think need to be revisited, what laws that they think don't need to be revisited, what laws and factual scenarios deserve review. And of course, they're making the final decision pretty much, unless the legislature writes a new law to change something, they're making the final decision on what the law is and how it's applicable to people's lives in every manner you can think of. So just think about your liberties, for one, constitutional rights, your civil rights. All of those issues could be appealed in some way, shape, or form up to the Supreme Court. You think about workplace issues, whether or not people have equal rights for equal pay, equal rights in the workplace to bring claims for, let's say, women for sexual harassment in the workplace. The Supreme Court has decided those issues before and indicated that women, even if raped in the workplace, don't have a claim to sue their employers, even if they have reported this and the employer was on notice. Whether or not you're shopping at your everyday grocery store and you slip and fall, whether or not you break your neck, do you have a claim that you can be compensated for your injuries? And the Supreme Court has decided that issue and limited those rights that we had at common law for comparative negligence, meaning if you slipped, were you negligent, versus was the company leaving the water or the puddle there, were they negligent in knowing it? And then you could compare those things and still recover. Well, the Supreme Court has said doesn't really matter, it's open and obvious. So that has limited people's rights to recover. Think about things like whether or not you're a union member. Collective bargaining rights have come before the Supreme Court as well. Election issues, what's going to be on the ballot, such as now the PA4 for people in our viewing area. I'm sure the emergency financial management law has had major implications. Well, that came before the Supreme Court to make a determination as to whether or not it could even get to the ballot for the people to vote on and have their right to referendum and choose their own laws. Everything comes before the court. Environmental issues. Think about the water that we drink, whether or not the environment is being polluted in a certain manner, and whether or not companies should have the right to drill down. Our gas is being emitted into our environment based upon corporate behavior. All of these things have come before the Supreme Court previously and may very well come again. And the Supreme Court has limited people's rights to bring those types of claims, saying that even though our statute says that all people, any citizen of the state has a right to bring claims to protect our environment, they've said, no, you do not. They've limited that right, even though it seemed to be fairly clearly written, saying only certain people who have financial interest or specifically are implicated in the specific geographic area and are affected can bring a claim. So when you think about your rights and your liberties, your ability to bring lawsuits, your ability to recover against your insurance companies when you've paid your premiums, 26 out of 26 times the current Supreme Court and the people that my team of 3 women that we're running against, 26 out of 26 times they voted for the insurance companies and against the insurers. Whether or not you believe that's based upon a good reading and accurate reading of the law or not, the law of averages, you would think.
A couple folks would have had some. Exactly. I experienced, I was in Lansing for the PA4, and I was quite appalled of the way it was set up, and it really scared me that all that power rested in those individuals' hands. Do you think that the Supreme Court should be making laws, or should they just be upholding the laws?
Well, Supreme Court and any court by nature is not the legislative body. That's why we have a separation of powers in our branches of government, the executive branch, and then we have the judiciary, which has a separate function than the legislative branch. And of course, the legislative branch is supposed to write the laws, And the judiciary is supposed to follow the law. And there may be some gray areas sometimes where the law may not be clear in its application or its wording. And so we seek to find what the legislative intent is. We don't seek to limit the law in any way, shape, or form based upon our personal view or our personal philosophy. We seek to find exactly what the legislature meant and apply it that way. Neither do we try to overly broaden the law as written by the legislators. And when there is nothing that's written in law, statutorily, there's the common law, case law that has evolved for years and years and years within our state and oftentimes within our country, which we follow regularly. So we don't make significant changes of the law except in some very extraordinary circumstances. So it's not the role of the court to make laws, especially not based upon their own personal view and opinion, and certainly not to support special interests who may be supportive of those judges. But the law should be applied as written and as it has evolved for the benefit of all the people. You know, my view is that the courtroom is the one place where no matter who you are, whether you're a big corporate interest, whether you're a real rich person, whether you're really poor, your socioeconomic level shouldn't matter, your race shouldn't matter, your gender shouldn't matter, your age shouldn't matter, and your religious preferences certainly shouldn't matter, and really, it shouldn't matter who you take home tonight as your life partner. You're supposed to be on equal ground.
What do you say to the people at home in the 43rd district? Is that where you are now?
46.
46. That say, we need you here. You know, we want you here. We're not going to see you in Lansing, and you're not going to be as powerful to us there. What do you say to those individuals?
Well, you know, it's something that you wrestle with because I have such an affinity with my community. I love my community. I care about each and every litigant that comes before me. And I think that's why I've been very effective, even to the extent I've had people say to me that, you know what, in a letter, that I really had a good experience in your court even though I lost. Right. I thought it was fair. But I tell the people, you know, I'll be sad to leave too because I think I've been very effective, you know, with our youth. I reach out to our youth and I've created a court and schools program just significantly for our youth so that I take my courtroom right into our schools to try to deter them from any other criminal behaviors that they might get involved in and try to show them what's expected when they get involved with the system.
Tell you what, I'm going to interrupt you here because what I want to do is I want to give you the last 30 seconds, just look in the camera and explain to the people that are watching why they should vote for you.
Well, I believe that we need change on the court. We need justices who have practical experiences, who understand community concerns, understand individual people's concerns, that are going to read the law as written and try to construe it in a manner that's fair and just for all of the people rather than special interest. And I know with my background and experience on the bench in private practice and my broad life experiences and my passion for doing what's right for Michigan children's families and Michigan's women and men, that I will do the best job I can. And we need representation on that court that represents all of the diverse people in our state.
Sheila Johnson, right?
Right.
Okay, guys, you heard it here. Make sure you get out to the polls. No empty cars. Every seat's got to be full. And we'll have more Meet the Candidates after this.